How's it going, people? For today's video, we're going to take an in-depth look at the new Survive the Horde event. And the reason I say it's new is because there's been a lot of changes made to it compared to last year. So it's not exactly the same. We're going to take a look at the rewards as well as the best hero loadouts and weapons to use. But first, I want to take a look at the home base status report. And I'll leave a link to this status report in the description if you want to go check it out. First thing they went over was the hot map update. It says here, in the latest edition of Survive the Horde, you won't always be moving to the same bases as before. For example, a new base location has appeared at the volcano. Also, the gnome rave from last time got broken up, so they found a new place to party. So first thing I want to go over is that new base location. It's going to be located here, which is towards the bottom left of the map. Last year we didn't have a base in this location. You're still only going to have to defend a total of 3 bases every time you do Survive the Horde. Even though there's a total of 4 different locations, only 3 of them will appear, and which 3 those are random. And you can tell which bases you'll have to defend by just pulling up your map and looking for the exclamation mark. So in this example, we have a base in the bottom left, the bottom right, and the top right. There's also a new island near the new volcano base. So this entire island right here is new. This wasn't here last year. But yeah, not only did we get a new location near the volcano, but a couple of the other locations look different compared to last year. So first we'll start off with the one that looks very similar. This is what it looks like now at the mine, and this is what it looks like last year. So that looks very similar. Not really a whole lot has changed in this area. But this next base has changed. It looks like they dug up the ground here, because it used to be just a flat surface, but now it looks like you can go down a couple levels. So yeah, this is what it looks like now in this location, and here's what it used to look like before. So like I said, it used to be more of a flat terrain, but they sort of changed that with this year's version. They also changed the area directly above it. It looks like they added a plain as well as a lot of vegetation. But yeah, this is what it looks like above this area now, and here's what it used to look like before. Speaking of that added vegetation, they also added it in other parts of the map. So in this area, for example, you see a lot of plants started to grow back. And that's not the only place where they added this sort of apocalyptic vegetation. Like right here, for example, you see there's a lot of plants growing on the fence. There were also a lot of plants on this bridge, and they weren't there last year. So they also sort of changed the aesthetic on certain parts of the map. A lot of the places look like they've been abandoned for a while. It has sort of a post-apocalyptic vibe to it. And when it comes to the third base, they also made some changes to this area. So there used to not be this huge cliff directly behind it. It was more of just like a huge flat area. There is also a slope on this side of the base, but now the terrain looks more like stairs. But yeah, you still got the warehouse. You just got that huge cliff structure directly behind it, which we didn't have before. So that's the new volcano base location, and that's what the other 3 locations look like. But like I said earlier, you're only going to see 3 of them every time you do Survive the Horde. They also said the gnome raid from last time got broken up, so they found a new place to party. I haven't found that new place where they party yet, but I did find the old one, and as you can tell, that party was broken up. They're no longer partying down there, but I haven't found a new one yet. So if you found a new gnome rave party, be sure to let us know in the comments below. But yeah, that's sort of what happened to the old gnome rave. Anyways, next thing they went over was wave updates. It says here, we updated the balance and order of waves in Survive the Horde and added some new ones for you to discover. Also, as wave difficulty increases, you'll also have less time between waves to prepare, so don't dally. Final wave holdout. Get ready for a grand finale. There's now a final wave. Survive the Horde for 5 minutes at the end of a mission while you wait for the home base to pull you out. So I actually made an entirely new spreadsheet showing what to expect during each wave. Before we take a look at it, I do want to show last year's. There are quite a few differences between the two, but there's also a lot of things that remain the same, like the modifiers, for example. But yeah, that was last year's Survive the Horde wave spreadsheet. I went ahead and made a new one. And I'm not going to go through each of these. Instead, I'm just going to point out the things that are different. So like I said, when it comes to the modifiers, all of them remain the same. The power level of the husk increased for every wave. This year they start out at power level 152, and on the last wave, which is wave 15, they're power level 357. We also have much less time in between each wave. This year we have between 1 minute and 50 seconds, all the way down to 1 minute in between each wave. Last year, it was between like 2 and 2.5 minutes for each wave. All of the husks for each wave are pretty much the same. There are fewer pillar waves. So this year, the only pillar waves we have are on wave 3, you have to destroy 10 pillars. By the way, speaking of pillars, even though melee weapons deal more damage now, I would still recommend using ranged weapons because it's a lot safer. You don't have to run out into the storm or run near the husk. You can just destroy the pillars from the safety of your base using a ranged weapon. Personally, I would recommend Xenon Bow. But on wave 3 we get 10 pillars. Usually by wave 4 is when you want to start crafting your Xenon Bow if you haven't crafted it already. Wave 6 is definitely different compared to last year. This year we actually have a mini boss that spawns in, but it's still a kill wave, so you're gonna have to kill all the husks before the wave ends. After that we have a couple more kill waves. On wave 8 you should be able to craft your discharger, which you'll need for the later waves. There's also some changes made to wave 9. Let's see, on wave 9 we had another pillar wave. This time you had to destroy 17 pillars. On wave 11, instead of being another pillar wave, we got a kill wave with 2 mini bosses that spawn in. We also had a mini boss spawn in on wave 13, which is another pillar wave. You got a total of 28 pillars on that wave. But we had another mini boss spawn in on that wave. Then we had another kill wave for wave 14 and a timed wave for wave 15. So for the last wave, you'll have to defend the base for a total of 5 minutes. And this is without a doubt the hardest wave out of all of the waves, not only because you have a lot of smashers that spawn in, but you'll also have infinite mini bosses spawn in. I'm not entirely sure if it's infinite, but they kept spawning in throughout the entire wave when I did survive the Horde last night. So I'm pretty sure they just keep spawning in. Would definitely recommend trying to get your build completed before wave 15 starts. You're gonna need a lot of tar pit traps, a lot of ceiling traps, a lot of wall darts, and have all of your pieces upgraded to tier 3. I'll leave a link to this wave spreadsheet in the description if you want to go check it out. And I'll also leave a link to last year's wave spreadsheet if you want to compare the two. So the next thing they went over were unlock difficulty tiers. It says, Survive the Horde now has multiple difficulty tiers. Complete a tier and the next difficulty will unlock. Can you overcome tier 5? Unlock new banner icons and sprays as you complete these difficulties. So as soon as you load into Survive the Horde, you'll see this screen appear. And these were the power levels available if you selected a power level 140 Survive the Horde. In order to unlock the higher tiers, you're going to have to complete the one before it. So it said unlock new banners and icons and sprays. So I did try to look up those new banner icons and sprays for these new difficulty tiers. But either they haven't been added yet, or they meant banner icons and sprays for the new weekly challenges. As of right now, there aren't any other banner icons and sprays other than the ones we know about. But if they do add some new banners and sprays in future updates for these increased difficulty tiers, I'll be sure to let you all know. But I believe they were referring to the weekly challenges. As for rewards, here are the banners and sprays that we got last year, so you should be able to get them this year by completing your weekly challenges. But again, we also got a couple new sprays and banners this year, and here are what they look like. You can actually get this banner and spray this week by completing the Storm Surge challenge. But other than like gold, tickets, battle pass XP, that's pretty much all the cosmetic rewards that I could find. Next thing they went over was the challenge week schedule. And it says we've adjusted the order of the challenge weeks compared to Survive the Horde's debut run and added some more. Here's a breakdown of what to expect week to week this venture season. So starting off this week, we have the Storm Surge modifier. And this one says the safe zones within the storm are now smaller. Lightning strikes frequently target the team, giving players and Husk alike a nasty zap. And we did try this Storm Surge out last night. Here's what the Storm Surge looks like. You can sort of see like a blue area where it's about to strike, and then about a second later you'll see a lightning strike. Usually it took away my entire shield every time I got hit with it. You would also see a little electricity around your body for a few seconds afterwards, and I believe it also increased your movement speed for a few seconds as well. I don't believe it'll deal any damage to your structures, but I do believe it'll also deal damage to Husk. So that's what the Storm Surge modifier looks like. We also got a spray after completing this weekly challenge. And here's what the spray looks like. It's the Gnome Rave spray. And yeah, these are pretty much all the rewards we got after completing our first power level 140 Survive the Horde. But yeah, that's the Storm Surge modifier. Next week we're going to get Low Gravity. The magnetic field has shifted, rendering hoverboards inoperable and changing the effects of gravity. Jump higher and move faster as your melee attacks knock back the hordes of Husk. So you can't use your hoverboards next week, but you will be able to jump further and higher, as well as move faster and knock back Husk further. For week 3 we have Melee Mayhem. Ranged weapons and ammo from supply drops are limited, and any ranged attacks made against Husk will ricochet off and also damage you. But on the bright side, your trap damage and melee attack speed will be boosted, so put away those guns, craft some extra traps, and start swinging. For week 4 we got Hasty Husk, and it says here you're in a jam. Damaging and eliminating enemies will just make the horde move in more quickly. Even worse, if they get close enough to start damaging you, they'll start healing themselves. Focus fire to try to take them out quickly and preferably at a distance, so they move faster whenever they take damage. And they also have life leech, so whenever they hit you, they'll heal themselves. So you'll want to use ranged weapons that week. For week 5 we have Windswept, and this is one of the new ones. It says here, hold on to your hats, it's getting gusty out here, threatening players with a rash of tornadoes. We have not seen gameplay of this, but if it's anything like the tornadoes you see in war games, then they'll most likely deal damage to your structures, so make sure you have a constructor placing down their base. And tornadoes can also deal damage to you if they lift you up high enough and throw you far enough, so you'll have to watch out for them. But that was week 5. For week 6 we have Slow Burn, and this says feel the burn as Husk drop an acid pool after being eliminated. Beware of the Husk attacks inflicting you with a slowing status effect, making avoiding the acid pools tricky. So you'll just have to avoid the acid pools whenever you kill Husk, and avoid getting hit by the Husk. For week 7 we have Unflappable Husk. This one says the horde has become unstoppable, ignoring all crowd control effects. Try and avoid their attacks as they now leave a lingering damage effect when they hit you. To help you out, your sniper, assault rifle, SMG shotgun, and pistol damage has been increased, and traps have become more lethal. Use your newfound power to keep the horde at bay. So it looks like they deal affliction damage. There's also a buff to ranged weapon damage, as well as traps, but they will ignore all crowd control. So they'll most likely end up ignoring things like decoy or slow field. But yeah, that's everything for week 7. For week 8, we're going to have the Fast Forward Challenge. The waves of enemies are making their way faster than ever, meaning you'll have less time to build and gather supply drops. But don't let intimidation slow you down. Move fast and get things done in this race against time to survive the horde. So the enemies will have increased movement speed that week, and you'll have less time between waves. But it also says move fast, so they may also increase our movement speed as well. For week 9 it says Smog of War, and this is another new one. The volcano is starting to erupt. A thick cloud of ash coats the area, reducing visibility significantly. Our radar is not functioning properly, so enemies won't appear on the map. Oh, so they're going to make it harder to see that week, and they're also going to take away your map. So that should make things a little more spookier. For week 10 we have the floor is lava. The volcano is in full erupt mode. Staying in contact with the ground for too long will cause a damaging lava eruption below your feet. Keep on the move or take refuge at an elevated position to avoid these perilous hazards. So all you have to do that week is just keep moving or stand on a built structure. And for the last week, which is week 11, we have the Not Space Rocks Challenge. And it says defend your bases and keep your eyes in the skies for falling volcanic debris from above. Hot Stepper. Oh shit. Did I really have to say Hot Stepper? And that sums up everything that was in the home base status report. I do also want to show some of the best loadouts, weapons, and traps to use. Dragon Scorch with Blakebeard's stash is pretty good. Not as good as it was last year because Blakebeard's stash got nerfed, but it's still reliable when it comes to survive the horde. You'll mainly just want to spam your abilities and take out a lot of the Husk, so he's really going to help you out when it comes to kill waves, which are majority of the waves. But yeah, for this loadout we have Willow, Crossbones Barrett, Snuggle Specialist Sarah, Privateer Hype, and Blakebeard. Another sort of DPS loadout I would recommend is the Stoneheart Pharaoh loadout, and we also used the Blakebeard stash with her. But yeah, with this one you mainly just want to craft your Xenon bow as soon as possible, which you should be able to do by at least like wave 3 or 4, and then just spam your Xenon bow from there on out. But yeah, with this loadout we have Rabbit Raider Jonesy, Redline Ramirez, Crossbones Barrett, Blakebeard, and Privateer Hype. You're also going to want to have at least 1, maybe 2 constructors in your group. One constructor loadout I would recommend is the power base loadout, and you can either use recycling. You should have enough materials from supply drops. So another good team perk you could use is supercharged traps. And for our support team, we have Thunder Thora, Base Kyle, Mega Base Kyle, Warden Kyle, and Electro Pulse Penny. You could also use Warden Kyle, especially since his buff is really useful when it comes to not only healing yourself, but healing your teammates. And this is the one I used when I first beat Survive the Horde this year. We have Warden Kyle with supercharged traps. For our support team, we have Mega Base Kyle, Power Base Penny, Thunder Thora, Base Kyle, and Ice King. I suppose you could also use the Ice King as well, and just switch out the heroes in your support team. But those are some of the constructor loadouts I would recommend. And I suppose you could also use a Teddy loadout, because you can sort of spam Teddies with this loadout, and that's going to help you with the kill waves. So with this one, we're using Jingle Jess with Happy Holidays. For our support team, we have Ventura Ramirez, Trailblazer Quinn, Gumshoe, Stare Down Southie, and Jilly Teacup. And we also have Slowfield and Humper Turret. When it comes to gadgets, again, if you have at least one person using Blakebeard Stash and giving out coconuts, as well as Warden Kyle, you don't really need Adrenaline Rush, but I suppose you could use that. Slowfield's going to be really good, especially for the later waves when you have a lot of mini bosses and smashers. I would also recommend using the turret as well. The banner can be useful because it increases the health of your base, but you can't respawn and Survive the Horde, so you can't really use the banner for that. But yeah, those are the only gadgets you'll want to use when it comes to Survive the Horde. When it comes to weapons, the one you're probably going to want to use the most is the Xenon Bow. It doesn't require a lot of ammo every time you shoot, so you're going to use this for most of the waves, and you should be able to craft it by wave 3 or 4. This is also going to be probably the best weapon to use when it comes to monoliths or the pillars. The next weapon you're going to want to use is the Plasmatic Discharger. And you're going to use this one only on waves that have mini bosses or smashers, because this requires a lot more ammo, but it's also going to help kill those enemy types quicker. If you don't have Discharger, I suppose you could also use the Pot Shot. If you don't have the Xenon Bow, I guess you could use the Deatomizer, even though it's more expensive. But yeah, that's pretty much all the weapons that we used when we beat it. And when it comes to traps, the main traps you'll want to use are ceiling drop traps, and you have to place them down in the correct way. This sort of stuns them a little bit and knocks them back. And you'll want to place these like directly around the base. So that's probably the best ceiling trap. You may also want to spam ceiling electric field traps everywhere over their spawn. So as soon as they spawn in, they start taking damage. Yeah, those are probably the two best ceiling traps. When it comes to floor traps, you'll want to use the floor launchers directly around the base just to push them back. But all around the base, you'll want to place down tar pits, because not only does it stop Husk every time they walk over it, but it also stops smashers and mini bosses when they walk over it or charge over it. So I would definitely recommend tar pits. You could also place down some wooden floor spikes just to slow them down a little bit, but I believe the best floor trap is going to be the tar pit. And when it comes to wall traps, you're mainly going to want to use wall darts for the most part. I suppose you could place down a couple of sound walls just for exploders, but for the most part, you're just going to want to use wall darts. And you're also going to want to place down some anti-airs, not only around the base, but also on top of it. You'll want to place those down at each of the bases. And those are the best traps to use when it comes to Survive the Horde. And we also have new XP values for Survive the Horde this year. So if you make it all the way to wave 15 and complete it, you'll get a total of 126,000 Battle Pass XP. And that doesn't include the bonus Battle Pass XP you can receive. So the more bases you have, the more XP you'll get. Even if you fail, you'll still get XP. And you can also get Battle Pass XP from the Survive the Horde dailies. So that's how much Battle Pass XP you'll get from Survive the Horde this year. But yeah, that sums up everything I wanted to go over for this one. For those of you who have tried it, let us know what you think about Survive the Horde in the comments below. Also, big shout out to everybody who's been using creator code Aone. Anyways, I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.